We don't have Ben, huh?
Yes, he's sick too. All right, we want to call this meeting to order. My name is Jarrett Waite. I'm the Mayor Pro Tem and standing in for Mayor, who I believe is on Zoom with us. Is he on there yet? He's just a little under the weather and so asked me to conduct the meeting today. With this, we have Councilwoman Lena Mathis, Councilwoman Krista Hinton, and Councilman Denny Drake. I believe Ben is sick.
Yes, they said this afternoon he's been dealing with the flu as well. So we sent him a link to join and will possibly he will or not. I don't know.
Okay.
So
Very good. So we'll excuse him. All right, we'll still start with our opening ceremony. I've asked Councilman Denny Drake to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we have our opening comments by Pastor Greg Wright.
Is he here?
Please.
You all rise and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, it looks like our pastor isn't with us. And so Denny, would you mind doing the opening comments?
Our Father in heaven, as we come before thee at the beginning of this city council meeting, we're grateful for this great community in which we live. We're thankful for the citizens and their involvement in the growth and the perspectives for Santa Clara. We pray that we as councilmen and councilwomen may make the correct decisions, be guided by thy hand in what we do, and that the citizens of Santa Clara may continue to enjoy the lifestyle which they're used to. We're grateful for all that thou hast blessed us with, and we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilman Drake. All right, so item number 3 is conflicts and disclosures. Council, is there anything we need to disclose? Any of the agenda items? Okay, very good. We'll move on to number 4, our working agenda. We do not have a public hearing today. And I think I just need a motion to table that, and also item C1 under general business, the discussion on the power pole attachment fees. Does that sound right?
yeah, we'll bring it back at a future date. It had not been
I move that
completed
we-
with review by legal.
I move that we table item according to mine agenda A1,
Correct.
public hearing to receive public comment regarding the amendment to the power pole attachment fees.
Do I have a second?
You need it on C1 as well.
And C1 as well, yes.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilman Drake, second by Councilman Mathis to table item A1 and also item C1. Any discussion on that? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. Very good. Thank you, Council. All right, item 4B is our consent agenda. You have before you the approval of claims and minutes. We have our regular city council meeting minutes from October 12th, and also our claims through October 26th of 2022. And then our calendar of events is we have a city council work meeting on the 2nd of November, a regular city council meeting on the 9th, and then a regular city council meeting on the 23rd of November. And I would just look for a motion. Unless there's any questions on the claims or anything like that.
I'll make a motion. We approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Lena and second by Krista. Any question on that? Let's do roll call. Denny,
Aye.
I'll say aye. Krista
Aye.
and Lena.
Aye.
Okay, that carries. Very good. All right, so we'll move into our general business, item number C, and we'll go to number 2, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the proposed preliminary plat for Lindsay Estate, a 5-lot subdivision located on Vineyard Drive, presented by Jim.
Thanks, Councilmember Waite. Why don't we go ahead and pull up the preliminary plat? Go to that. All right. So The application before you is for a 5-lot subdivision to be known as Lindsay Estate. The applicant is Jason Lindsay. This property is just under 6.5 acres in size. You can see the lots being proposed. Access to the property is off of Vineyard Road, so you can see that access point, and then the other access would be off of Riverwood Lane, providing access at 2 different locations to the proposed 5 lots. The other lots you see at the top of the subdivision plat are existing lots and existing homes in the subdivision that abuts the property to the west. And you can see those 4 lots there. So really nice lots, a total of 5 of them. They range in size from 28,132 square feet to 57,389 square feet. So quite large, 0.65 to 1.32 acres in size. The property owner is proposing to build on one of the lots, a home for his family, and the other lots will be made available for purchase. I just want to show you the property. If you'll go down to those pictures, it's really quite nice. You can see this is looking across the site from Riverwood Lane, being used for agricultural purposes. Really nice piece of property. And then if we scroll down, I really like this view from Vineyard. Just a beautiful piece of property that they're proposing to put the homes on. I think it will be well received by the residents as well as the future homeowners. If we could go back to the preliminary plat, we do have some common area open space that they're proposing. So you can see the area there adjacent to lot 5. That's a common area open space. And then also they're showing it adjacent to the entry and across the street from lot 1. There is some open space there. It's adjacent to a precast concrete fence that the homeowner has there that you saw in the previous picture. There is also another open space area to the north, not the north, I'm looking upside down, to the west of Road A. And so we're recommending that an HOA be put in place for the maintenance of these common areas. It's been discussed, a nice landscape or an entry feature, perhaps a monument sign of some sort, could be placed to the 2 entry points off of Vineyard as well as Riverwood Lane. That's something we would work with the developer on at a later date. Going through the preliminary review items, I just want to briefly go through the items that we looked at that our TRC discussed and city staff reviewed. As far as public streets and dedications, all required. The public streets, a public street is required. The improvements must meet city standards and be installed or bonded for prior to subdivision plat recordation. This is a 50-foot cross section, typical, your roadway, your curb gutter, and sidewalk. And then as it wraps around the corner, lot 5 also has frontage on Vineyard Road. So those road improvements will be required along that frontage of Vineyard Road for lot 5. So it does wrap the corner because that's a corner lot. The common areas are shown on the plat, but we recommend that they be worded or labeled correctly on the plat, referring to common area A, common area B, common area C with the acreage, because they do have multiple common areas. There is secondary water available to this subdivision, so they'll have to connect to that. And then the public utility easements, they have indicated those on the preliminary plat. We'll work with them to make sure that those are correct. As far as our reviewing departments, the building department will require a geotechnical report for all lots within the subdivision at time of building permits submittals. Power department, public utility easements are required and will have to be shown on the plat. And Public Works has that requirement as well of the public utility easements being required and a secondary water connection being required. We do meet state code requirements for noticing of the item, and that's spoken about here in the staff report. So the recommendation is as follows. The Planning Commission did hold a public meeting on October 13th, 2022. And forwarded a recommendation of approval to the City Council. City staff recommends that the council approve the preliminary plat for the Lindsay Estate subdivision subject to the conditions as outlined in the report. Now I've shown the 6 conditions of approval, and that's our recommendation in our presentation at this point. Councilmember Waite, if you have questions of staff, I'm here, and the applicant, Mr. Lindsay's here as well. Thank you.
Okay, council, do you have any questions?
I have two.
Go ahead.
And Jim, you can answer it or the applicant can
Okay.
answer it either way. One is the applicant aware that he will be required to maintain the common areas? So he's clear on that.
Yes,
Okay.
that's the HOA. They're gonna
Yeah.
form an HOA that will run with the subdivision.
I'm just making sure he's clear that that has to
Sure.
be done. And
Right.
then the second one is under our water efficiency ordinance,
Hmm.
under 1792-030, because these are larger than half acre lots, they're required to install the secondary water system. I just want to make sure they're clear that that needs to be done.
Okay. Even with the secondary connection because of the lot size, that they'll have to do that.
Mhm.
Okay. Is that understood, Mr. Lindsay? Yeah, and that's something I can discuss with you because this is preliminary plat. You're gonna have to come back for final plat. But it's just the landscaping requirements that we've put in place for the city and the county has too. The Washington County Water Conservancy District in an effort to be more water efficient and limit the outdoor landscaping and water use to more of a xeriscape, drought tolerant plantings rather than just a lot of lawn space. So that's something that will have to be discussed.
Why don't you come up to the mic and then we can
Yeah.
probably answer that question.
Just wondering that I saw what was passed in St. George. But in this case, I'm bringing, I have sort of purchased independent of this, a bunch of water shares specifically for this subdivision. And my understanding was there'd be some sort of exchange of, I would be giving water shares. I don't know exactly to who. I'm looking at you, Dustin, because we've.
Yeah, to the city.
Yeah, to the city in exchange for sort of the ability to water these lots and not have only just gravel in these huge lots. That's sort of my understanding. And I know there's a lot of ground to cover there, but the sort of the standard kind of everything but 1,500 square feet is xeriscape. If I had my own water, there would be some sort of lenience with that.
I don't believe so. The way our ordinance states, once you give us those shares and it becomes the city's water, then you have to meet that landscape ordinance.
So on a lot that's 1.3 acres, I'm gonna have what, 1,500 square feet of green? Is that what you?
I'd have to get back.
No, it doesn't
It's
limit it to
8%,
that
I
small.
believe.
Yeah, the lawn area can be 8% and the total irrigated area can be 16% of the lot area. So that's quite a bit. That's just the base of the trees and the bushes, counting that, and then the lawn area itself. So I think it would leave sufficient space for a lawn area in the front and the back, but it cannot just be all sod. That defeats the purpose countywide. So
Yeah,
there'll be some limitations, but you'll still be able to have some sod in the front and back.
yeah, I've sort of, as you and I were discussing,
Right.
I've sort of gone crazy here because I'm going to be living here and I'm really trying to do something against all of my best economic interests to make something that's really sort of nice. And I could definitely cut it up a whole lot more and probably make a lot more money as a developer. But I've sort of been working on this project for 12 years now because I wanted to live here. And I've got the shares, I've got the land, and I'm really trying to do something that's not really, I mean, even if you can see the 4 lots that you can see up there, those are big existing homes. If you look at them sort of in comparison to what the kind of the frontage that I'm proposing, it is sort of economic suicide, but I'm really trying to do something nice. And so, and I've also kind of made sure I had the water to do something nice. And so I understand we live in a desert and we all have to be conservative here. And I agree with that. But
So I think what we can do here is this is a preliminary plat.
Right.
You still have to come back for final plat approval and go through that process and record a plat. And at that point, the building lots are sold or developed and homes are built and the landscaping and irrigation's done through that process and later on. I can discuss this with your engineer, Jared Bates, who isn't here this evening, and he can figure out based on the parameters, what would be allowed on each lot. So I think there will be some ability to get what you want, but you're not going to just be able to sod the whole thing.
Yeah, and
So-
I'm not trying to do that, but if
Yeah,
I've got these big, really big, I mean, they're 250 feet wide and they're that way for a certain look and feel. And if I'm gonna have 250 feet of gravel,
no,
then I'm gonna cut them up into
no,
90-foot frontages like everybody else in
Sure.
town does and just stack the houses in there.
you're not going to
Like,
have that. I mean,
Okay.
you see this all over. A lot of the newer homes in our community in St. George, they have a little more limited lawn area in the front and in the back, still able to accommodate a pool, but also have some nice desert scape and plants and bushes and drips. There's a way to be mindful, but create a nice design as well. And so we'll talk to Jared and he'll figure those calculations out for you.
Okay,
You should be able to accommodate what your vision or dream is. We'll look at it, but we do have an ordinance in place that you'll have to comply with, but there is some flexibility. We
okay,
can talk more about that.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, Lena, you were just talking about like they'll actually have to irrigate with the secondary water.
Yeah, I was just talking about making sure that it's in place so that because we require that on each lot, that's at least a half an acre.
The
So it's not-
secondary water,
Mhm.
yeah, he'll be using secondary water outside.
Yeah, and
That's correct.
we need to figure out whatever the exchange rate is, but I went and got these shares specifically knowing I was gonna kind of hand them over in order to get a secondary water system for these
Yeah.
lots.
I just didn't want it to catch you off guard.
Oh, yeah. The only thing that would catch me off guard is after having done this, I have 250 feet of gravel frontage. I'm not excited about.
No, we don't want that either.
Yeah,
So we'll
that's not our goal either.
figure out a nice design. So.
I did have one question that we are creating double fronted lots. Did that ever come up in TRC or anything of being a concern at all? Basically, those lots that get between Riverwood Lane and is that Road A, I think?
No, because of the existing wall they have in place and they're gonna put sidewalk on both sides, so it'll be walkable and then there'll be a 10-foot planting strip. So we've got the sidewalk, we've got the common area planting strip, and then the existing precast concrete wall is in place on the back of all those homes.
Yeah, I don't know if you've been there, but I did another economically crazy thing and spent a lot of money building a really nice fence all the way around it so that it was uniform and it also created some sort of insulation between the two. Also, the setback rule was, I think, 10 feet. And sort of on my own, I made that setback, was it 20 feet or 17 and a half or something like that? So that there's a whole lot more common space on both sides of the road, but particularly on the side that of those houses that are double-sided in the back. And you sort of lose context of how big the common area spaces are. I think on the front, it's like 80 feet by 50 feet wide, sort of on the entrance. And then it's, like I say, 17 or 20 feet all the way down Road A. And then on the other side, I think it's 0.8 or 0.9 of an acre as you come in off of Riverwood. That's just common area. So there's lots of, all lots 1, 2, 3, and 4 that are in that existing subdivision. I don't know how I could really even put more buffer around them all the way. I mean, I've sort of given away more than half of an acre there of just sort of buffer in addition to what the zoning rules are. And then I've built this sort of fence all the way around it. So I've done what I could to sort of isolate the fact that they have a road on both sides.
Okay, thank you. Council, any other questions?
Just one on the Washington County Water Conservancy District. Are they issuing those will serve letters now? I know that's not due till final plat, but what do we do if it's not?
No, so the way we're doing it, and sorry, that's come up. The mayor's discussed that recently and they're still not issuing those yet. So we're getting a receipt that they've paid for those fees, some type of authorization from the Conservancy District that that's been paid for them to pay for the 5 lots, and they will have to provide that information to us to move forward. But by the time we get to final plat, they may be issuing those letters. This is just a preliminary at this point.
So if they are not issuing them, will we
Right.
be able to record with just the receipts?
Yes, and we've done that with a few others. They go in and they pay, they reserve or pay their fee, and then they provide the invoice to us or the receipts verifying that that has been reserved.
Thank you.
It's difficult because when we went through the ordinance, they told us that was going to be in place and it's still not. Now we're being told January, so we'll see what happens. So we're just using wording from our ordinance. So.
Okay, Councilman Drake, any questions?
No, I just think it's an excellent subdivision and it's proper for where it's at. I think you've done a great job.
Okay, very good. All right, then council, I would entertain a motion.
Now you're going to say 2 for 1, 3 for 1.
Well, I move that we approve the preliminary plat for the Lindsay Estates application with the 6 specific recommendations of the planning commission and staff.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Drake and a second by Councilwoman Hinton to approve the proposed preliminary plat for Lindsay Estate as presented, including the 6 conditions given to us by the planning commission. Any questions on that just motion? Okay, let's start with Lena.
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
I'm also an aye. And Denny?
Aye.
Okay, that carries. Congratulations, and we're excited to see it start. All right, so we'll move on to general business C3, which is discussion and possible action modifying chapter 15, building and construction, sections 15.08.010 through 15.30.010. Updating the building codes currently on city record to coincide with building codes as adopted by the state of Utah, and approve ordinance 2022-24 presented by our esteemed building official, Cody Mitchell.
Thank you.
Are you in the west wing or the east wing? I don't remember.
I'm
in the west wing, the northwest wing to be precise. Yes, as you stated, this is an amendment to amend the ordinance 1508 through 1532. This is the amendment of 10 building codes, including the National Electrical Code and Fire Code. I will cover the building codes and the electrical code, and then Andy will come up after following me to propose an amendment to the fire code. The description is quite lengthy, but I'll reread a portion of it to introduce. The proposed city ordinance amendments are intended to update the building codes currently on city record to coincide with the building codes as adopted by the state of Utah. The proposed is an adoption of the amendment of the International Plumbing Code, Fuel Gas Code, Mechanical Code, Energy Code, Existing Building Code, and Residential Codes as currently adopted by the state. During the 2022 legislative session, the state of Utah elected to adopt various editions of the published codes regulating and governing the maintenance and construction of structures. The International Code, I don't know if you're aware, but it updates every 3 years. And typically Utah used to follow suit. So the code, the ICC codes would come out every 3 years, and then the following year they would adopt by the state. And of course, they amend it and water it down a little bit. But they stopped doing that in the IRC, the International Residential Code, in 2016. The residential code has been stuck there since 2016. So the publishing has come out on the 2019 and now the 2021. Yet we're still there. So I was reluctant to buy. I just bought the new codes because we could actually be in the 2021, but the state is in the 2016 for the IRC, the 2018 for all the other codes, and then the NEC falls in a different code cycle. It's very confusing. Different publishers by those 2 codes, but with the amendment, the last time that this was reviewed and adopted was by an ordinance in 2014, adopting later versions. So it's been a minute. This is long overdue. So we'd like to get this taken care of. So the language that I've proposed in the ordinance, it cleans up conflicting and duplicated language. the duplicates, they fall within some of the city standards as well as the code. So the ordinance duplicates sometimes 2 to 3 times throughout those references. And then additionally, the revised language is, I'm revising language to make it more clear and concise. So I lost my train of thought, but I will continue. Additionally, this amendment includes an upgrades evaluation schedule. So that's going to be a little bit more complicated, but I met with Brock and went over this. And we're currently way behind. We're evaluating our properties at $80 a square foot. And there's not much out there that we can do for $80 a square foot. So the new schedule and the data also published by ICC, it updates twice a year in February and August. So it gives us more current data, and it also flows with the market. So in our highs, we'll get that higher dollar per square foot, and it will also recognize the lows. So let's get started. Let's go to the first. This is the first. This is the building code. This building code covers commercial buildings. Just it's applicable to all commercial uses, accessibility, things of that nature. Not in the trades work, not gas. Those fall into other codes. So this, you can see that I struck most of the language initially, and I proposed new language. The new language, the biggest change in the new language is that I don't identify a year because I don't know what the state is going to do. So I just added language that says we want to adopt this code currently as adopted and amended by the state of Utah. So that way I don't have to come back to you, because they could go into legislative session the first part of 2023 and adopt a new code. And I'm trying to avoid that, to where we just follow what the state does. So with that, the only revision is that we insert the city of Santa Clara in section 101.1. And then it also asks for some floodplain mapping in 1612.3. So we insert the date of our last, our floodplain map was April 2nd of 2009 with a LOMAR, which is a letter of map revision, December 31st, 2019. Any questions on 1508-101 building code?
I was just curious, you talked about the valuation. Does that mean someone's building permit would be a different price based on how we decide? You said it was $80 per square foot. Am I understanding that correctly? That like when they come to get their building permit?
Yes, that's the permit fees comes up in 1508-040.
Okay,
So I will address that a little further once we get to that point.
okay.
It's right around the corner though.
So hold my question for that till you get to there.
Yeah.
Okay,
This is just simply the adoption of the building code, addresses commercial structures. Our guideline for safety and regulation governing that aspect of construction. Okay to move on?
Yep.
Okay, now we'll go to 1508-040. That's the permit fee schedule. We currently use the 1997 edition of the Uniform Building Code. The Uniform Building Code was in place prior to the ICC. The ICC is currently adopted and used in variation throughout the states. And they now have a building valuation data for us to use. So the Uniform Building Code, we assign a price per square foot. If you can see that. That's it right there, Brock. Thank you. So we assign a price per square foot, and that goes up in increments with the larger the value of the home. So we established the base number. Currently, we're at $80.08 per square foot. And we could move off of that. We could continue to use this table, but it gives us it's tough to follow the trends and the classifications of construction and use, where the new data through the ICC prescribes that. If you'll scroll to the proposed form, it gives us classifications of all types of construction and gives us a dollar amount for classification and use. The proposal is that we introduce this. If you look at the R3, which is our residential construction, and go over to 5B construction, it's $166.08. That's significantly higher than our $80 that we are currently at. So in working with Block, we've devised a multiplier that would assess 85% of that number to introduce it at a much lower rate, knowing that we're not covering the full cost to the building department, but we would eventually sneak that up to where it should be over the hopefully next 5 years. So at 85%, when we ran the numbers, your average home of 2,500 square feet with a 1,400 square foot garage, the building permit fee comes in at roughly $3,700. With this new data proposed at 85%, that same home and garage comes in at $550 higher. That building permit fee also affects 3 other fees. It affects the plan review fee, a state tax fee, and a habitat fee. Plan review fee is 25%. State tax is 1% and habitat is 0.03%. So those would be very slight. The biggest difference would be in the building permit fee. I'll reiterate that this information is reproduced twice a year, and it fluctuates with the market, and so I'm intrigued by that. So any questions on this?
I have one.
Sure.
So is the ICC that updates twice a year, is it published so that a developer can see that, so that they know what the estimated cost is going to be, so they can plan for that in their costs?
Yes, it
Or
is.
is that
It is.
something they can access?
Yeah, it's access, or they can call us, but I can tell you that no one in my 20 years of experience have called and asked me how or what my base
Really?
number is. Never. They call when it goes up significantly, and they squeak, which I understand building costs are high, but I've never had anyone get down to
Proactively ask. for it.
what generates that number.
Okay, then my second question is, our ordinance doesn't have that 85% in there. So is that something that we're just doing on the side?
Well, we chose it by trying to soften
Sure.
going in, because if you went at the 100%, it was just a big jump. So we came to say, let's soften, as
Mhm.
Cody said, we'll incrementally increase it up to there. So that's how we did, but
So is that something we're doing like separate, like by resolution, or making a notation, or we're putting it in place for how long, or?
no, we don't have anything written in there. That's just
Okay,
and I'm not sure at the time when it was done that that number had been finalized when it went to Chris for the ordinance to be created.
okay.
She probably did not know that we were going to come off of that number. Just when Cody and I got together and ran the numbers and said, well, it's a big jump that we
Yeah.
can't go that high.
Yeah.
So really what wanted is that, or the understanding with the adoption is that we're going to come off at 85%, but over the time we'll slowly creep it up. But that would be at the discretion of Cody, saying, hey, we're going to move it up another couple percentage, or 5% or 5%, but it doesn't have to always come back council for that approval. As it's approved, it can be that he has the discretion to move it as needed based on the building code as it is presented in this chart, as it adopts every 6 months.
Okay.
So basically, we just need to make that part of our motion, I'm guessing, to authorize
Yeah,
them to
I'm
do
just
that.
thinking it might be helpful to know how long we're gonna keep the 85% in place. So that it's not, well, I came in 6 months ago and you didn't charge it to this guy, but now you're gonna charge the full price to me. You know what I'm saying?
And in my past, I've always sent out a notification that the fees are going up. Just white flag to builders in the construction industry that, hey, the fees are going up on this date. So I mean, and the increases will be very minimal if we take it 3 to 5%. Yeah, it would, I don't know that we would ever hear anything about it, but
But I'd be more than happy to say, to have in your motion to say, we're gonna move it 3% a year for the next 5 years or 5% for 3 years. And then if I'd be fine if that's you feel comfortable having that more clearly stated.
Yeah.
As part of the adoption.
Okay.
I mean, my feelings on the uniform, the 1997 code. I've worked with that my career, and I've always had the ability, because the council adopts the fee schedule and the impact fees. But I had leniency in that valuation, so I prescribed the number per square foot and I implement it, which generates the fee. So it's kind of I don't know if it was a backdoor approach, but I increased those as the market continued to live through especially through this area. So, but at $80 a square foot, it's I mean, we're almost at a detached garage price. We've got to move off of that.
Can you explain what the 1A, 1B, 5B, what those mean in the chart?
Oh, those are classifications of construction. So if you're building of a 1A construction, you're building with like concrete and steel, and you get to 5B, you're building with anything, all combustibles.
Okay.
And then in the middle, you've got a mix of the two. So
Would we ever use any of those little classifications, or is it always going to be 5B?
most of the builders want to use with 5B because it's less expensive.
Mhm.
For instance, the point that we're working on approval right now, now this one, this is kind of what derived this, is because our commercial is still at $80 a square foot as well. So they're I3 5B construction, and we just figured their permit pricing at $80 a square foot. And they come in at $216 a square foot off of this chart. So 85, we would discount that up to the 85% had we have adopted this prior.
Mhm. Okay, any other questions on that part?
So Selena, maybe circling back to that, the question on that. So on the fee, we're not setting a fee, which is why giving that leeway to Cody to change, because we're not really setting a fee. We're just setting a number
So we're following.
that evaluates, to set an evaluation, which then creates, so it's not really adopting a set fee.
Yes, the biggest changes in the fee will come in February and August when ICC releases the new numbers. That'll be the biggest fluctuation.
But we would capture that if we make it that as of right now, we're just going to do 85% of the valuation data and then put in a 5% every 3 years to get us to full valuation after 3 years.
Mhm.
Right?
You can, yeah,
Effectively, that'd take care of it.
yeah.
Any other questions on 1508-040?
I don't think so. You're good to go on.
Okay, the next one is addressing the energy code. This is also a commercial code. I've eliminated a lot of language in this and just simplified it again, adopting the most current version of Utah State as amended, or as the state amended it, governing the efficiency and the building envelopes. And installation of energy efficiency, mechanical lighting and power systems. So I eliminated a lot of the language. I thought it was wordy and not really concise. So just simplified it with the revision of all of the I codes, ICC codes in 101.1 have a place to revise and insert the name of the city adopting. So again, we have a revision And it was amended and it was a separate code section, so I've struck 1610.020. And I've just made a revision under 1510.010. And then that's the insertion of Santa Clara City. Any questions on energy?
I don't think so. You're good to go on.
All right, very similar in the existing building code. This is section 15.14010. The language is again adopting the current code as amended by the state of Utah. And I struck a bunch of language. Adding I also struck, this is a new section, but I struck 15.14020, and I added the revision again, inserting Santa Clara City. Any questions on existing buildings? Oh, we're cruising now. Okay, this is the next one is the electrical code. This code is not published by ICC, it's published by NFPA. And so it cycles, you can see the ICC is in 2021, the most recent version. This one's in 2020. So they follow a code cycle behind, and Utah always adopts the following year. So this is the current code. This is the current code. I had to double check because there's so many stuck in 2018. And that's the one that the state is up to date on, the only code. So with that, I struck again a bunch of language that was just really wordy towards the end, and I've opted to insert the language adopting the current code as Utah State has adopted and amended it. On to 15.16.020, I struck all, it's an electrical inspection heading. I struck all of that language. I didn't feel we needed that in our ordinance. And 15.16.030, it talks about permits and inspections. It also goes into powerhouses and substations, items that are not regulated by the building department, but more fall under the power department. So I struck that section, just cleaning up the whole section of the ordinance was just simplified. And then into 15.16.040, this is another permit fee schedule for someone that just has, say, a generator or a solar system or something, that the permit fees would fall back to the consolidated fee schedule. And the only change in that section is just some, I didn't like the language that said from the fee amount shall be determined and adjusted from time to time. And I removed that language and put established by resolution. So any questions on 15.16?
I do have one. So on the permits, the new 15.16.020, if someone wanted to add like receptacles in their garage that weren't there previously, does this allow them to do that without coming in for a permit, or do they need to?
That wouldn't be regulated by ordinance. It's regulated by the adopted code. And it gives you parameters on what you can and can't do. So when you're adding receptacles, you are supposed to acquire a building permit. If you were to replace like for like, if you have a defective switch and you're just replacing a switch, you can do that. If you're replacing a fixture like for like, you can do that as well. But anytime you go and modify your existing electrical system, you should pull a building permit, have it inspected.
Okay, good to know. And that may happen with like electric charging. What I'm thinking is like people adding receptacles to their garage to charge their electric cars. And would they rely on the contractor to come to the city to get that permit if a resident's asking to do that?
Yeah, yes. If you're hiring a contractor, it's the obligation of the contractor to acquire the building permit.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
This is a side note, if you're putting a charger in your garage, it may be wise to do it as a welder or a RV plug, because electric car chargers are supposed to have arc fault protection. Arc fault protection devices are not, it's regulated by the code, but they get very expensive. So it's always wise just to put in a outlet for a welder,
Gotcha.
if you were interested. All right, so we're moving on. That was free advice. Onto the swimming pool and spa code. Oh, I did strike another section we didn't talk about. Let's go back to 1516-060. Electrical disturbances. And I didn't think we needed to talk about it. And if we have a disturbance, they just need to call Gary. That should be the hotline. You better, I noticed Lena's reading up on that. Any questions on that?
I don't think so.
Okay. A swimming pool and spa code. That is, it used to fall within the, in the body of the IBC and IRC. They've since moved it out. It's its own standalone code. And I've taken it and I've cleaned up the language. And also, as previously stated, chose to adopt it as currently adopted by the state of, adopted and amended by the state of Utah. And then I just removed much of the language and added safety because it is a very safety conscientious code. And one thing I missed was the revision to insert Santa Clara City in 101.1. Any questions on 15.18?
Looks like we're good.
Okay, moving on to the fuel gas code. Again, adopting it as the state of Utah has adopted in the amended version. I also added some language, being more specific on identifying what this code does. It addresses from the point of introduction to the distribution point. So right after the meter to your electric appliance. So I added that language on the bottom of this ordinance. The revision was again inserting in 101.1 Santa Clara City. Any questions on fuel gas?
Cody, can I just ask one question? In all these scenarios, we're referring to the state of Utah adopting. If they haven't adopted anything more current than 2012, that's where we would turn for the actual code, correct? In other words, as you read mechanical code addition or adoption, the addition of the International Mechanical Code is currently adopted by the state of Utah. If the most current is the 2012 edition, that's where we go.
Yes, that's where we're at in the IRC, as I
Okay.
stated
I just,
previously.
because hopefully there's certainly more current than that, but we're relying on the state to set that code.
Well, in 2016, the IRC, the last code that I'll talk about, we've been in that since 2016. It's the 2015 version of ICC's publication, but we've been in it. And in 2016, they said we want to stay in it for 2 code cycles. And then they just adopted to stay in it a little longer, just this last legislative session.
Good. Okay.
So the mechanical code, that was a good introduction. It's 1524. Again, adopting it as amended and adopted by the state. I removed redundant language. Some of the language is redundant and readdressed later inside this ordinance. It comes with the revision of section 101.1 in inserting Santa Clara City. Any questions on mechanical code? Oh, I'm sorry, we're not finished with that. 1524.020 is the permit fees. It just duplicates if someone were to change out an HVAC unit, gas vent, gas, any type of gas venting, they come and get a permit, it falls under a different different fee schedule than the building code that we talked about with the ICC and the 1997. So that language is duplicated. Any questions?
Then you removed the violation, a penalty for
Oh,
violation.
Yes, struck the violation and penalty. It was weird that it showed up there and only there, and
Not anywhere else.
well, I think it shows up under the next code, but it wasn't consistent. And I don't feel that this is the place. I've been talking with Matt on addressing a fee schedule for violations of the city ordinance, and so we're looking at moving a different direction with that.
Consolidating them all into one place.
Yeah, there would be a place for the code enforcement officer to go, as well as anyone that's enforcing ordinance, that they would have an avenue to enforce or write citation or warnings or whatever it is. So I've introduced that to Matt, and he's given me a green light to work on that. So
Great.
any questions on 1524? Moving on, plumbing code 1528, again, general cleanup. We're clearing concise language and adopting the code as amended by the state of Utah. Revising 101.1, inserting Santa Clara City. And 1528.020 is the permit fees, just cleaning up the language, removing from adjusted from time to time, and adding established by resolution. Striking in 1528.030, we strike the violation and penalty. Any questions on plumbing code? We're cooking now. All right. This is my final code. This is the residential code. I spoke a lot about it. I struck the whole code section. I didn't like the way it was written. I didn't like the language. So the adopted language. It simplifies it. It says much of the same stuff, but again, amends it as adopted by the state of Utah, and with the revision in 101. Inserting in Santa Clara City. Along with that, in table 030, we insert the snow load, the wind speed, termite, frost depth, decay, and temperatures that our climate zone that would fall within inside of our climate zone or location. And so we insert those into that table. Give us design parameters. And then the fee schedule. This is a duplication of the fee schedule that I first introduced to you. So this would be applicable for new residential construction as well as commercial construction. And that's what we talked about at the first with the 1997 Uniform Code and the proposed adoption of the building valuation data by ICC. Any questions? Then I can tell you that staff makes a strong recommendation to move forward with adopting the amendment of these ordinance. Wait, I need to have Andy come up. But staff has stands behind these ordinances as represented. So.
Okay. I guess I will ask the 15.32.010, the display of property number required.
I'm sorry, will you repeat that?
Yeah, right after your permit fee schedule, we were just talking about. You struck out 15.32.010, display of property number required.
Yes, I'm eliminating that. Great question, and I missed it. That is redundant and inaccurate. The code already identifies how your numbers should be, how the numbers should be posted, the size of the lettering, the width of the stroke of the number, and it does not coincide with the language. So we already have it in the adopted code, and they contradict each other.
Okay, thank you. All right, chief.
All right, good evening. So regarding the fire code section, it's 15.2, and it goes, we're gonna basically hold some language out. There's some specific language if you look at 15.2.040 and then 050. So those are specific on hazards, basically hazardous materials, flammable liquids. We're not sure the extent. We kind of researched it, Colin and I, as far as why that language was in there, but there must have been something in town, business wise, that they wanted that specifically described in there, in the code. You'll see chapter 34, they no longer correspond with the chapter. So as the code changes every 3 years, those chapters don't line up. So we're going to pull those out. And then if you go to the top, the adoption, like at the top, the language basically, it just states, hey, we're going to the 2018. We're going to do blanket language, but I think it would be wise, just talking with our couple attorneys, Dale and Matt, is we'll put the 2018 in their specific edition, and then every 3 years or whenever we'll just come. It's a good opportunity for us in fire to review it. And then we'll have it approved again. So they're currently in the 2021, but the state again is at the 2018, and that's where we're at. So we'll go from, again, moving it from the 2012 up to the 2018, and then those appendices, they're at the top in that same section there. So we just go down again. So B, C, D, E, F, and G. They now have A through N. And so those appendices are important. Those have like road access lists on certain ones, signage requirements, just different language. It includes the hazardous materials that we saw that we're striking through. That language is in those appendices. So that's in the International Fire Code. In the back, A through N, these appendices we reference for special circumstances. So we want to include those in, and that's the extent. And then obviously the numbering changes on the document there. So,
Chief, question.
yeah.
I know you've changed the date, the 2012 to 2018. What if you eliminated the date period and just said the fire chief or designee responsible for fire code enforcement shall use and adopt the International Fire Code as adopted by the state of Utah?
Yeah, and that was a discussion. Actually spoke with Matt and then Dale a little bit. As far as legal counsel on that, was just the thought was, hey, it's good to maybe put it in there when we can come back. It forces us to come back as fire and then present it to you guys as council, just to make sure that we're reviewing it. So that was what they recommended. The blanket language was the initial thought, but then with that, and I like that. I mean, I'm recommending what we have here, and it'll force us to go through those appendices and see if we want to
Review and
get the, yeah. So that's where our stance on it. So.
Okay.
Any other questions at all?
I do. So can you just clarify for me? So the flammable liquids and everything, that's covered in the appendices, and that's why it's being stricken here?
Correct.
Not just being stricken, all that.
Correct. Yeah, it's covered much more thoroughly in those appendices. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
I had the same question.
I just didn't want flammable liquid. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions for chief? Okay, thank you very much.
Right. Thanks.
All right, council. So it looks like we need to decide on the fire if we're going to keep the 2018 or follow legal counsel and leave it in there. And then decide on how we want to ratchet up from the 85% valuation. Am I reading that right? Any questions,
so.
discussion?
You want my discussion?
Sure.
I'm fine leaving the 2018 in, my personal opinion, if Matt has said that it's worthwhile having that in there. I'm fine leaving it in there. And then I like the idea of doing the 5% over 3 years. It's nice round numbers. It gets it there to where we need to be. It makes it much simpler. So that would be my recommendation. And it would be to do it in both of the sections, 15080020 and 153020, to do it in both where it was referenced in both of those sections. And then the one revision that you caught that didn't have the section 101 in the 1518.
1518-101 would add designation letter A as the body and then a revision as B, adopting Santa Clara City.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? Council? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
You want me to make a motion? I can make a motion.
Sure.
I'm not sure I can repeat.
It'll
what
be
I
a
just-
little bit, yeah, to
I'm not sure I
remember.
can repeat what I just said, but I'll try.
And I guess before you do that, I just want to thank staff for going through this exercise. It does look like the code's been cleaned up a lot, and it's just good to see that we're trying to make things more streamlined and simple and more straightforward. So I appreciate that.
You ready?
Yep.
Okay, I will make a motion that we approve the amendment to chapter 15, building and construction, sections 1508-010 to 1530-010. And ordinance 2022-24 with the following revisions. One, to add in section 1518, the section 101 revision that Cody referenced that was not included. And then in the two permit fee sections, 15080-020 and 1530-020, to add the 5% over 3 years, starting at 85%, so that in 3 years we get to 100% of full valuation. Is that sufficient?
I'm good.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it. Go ahead.
Okay, so then discussion on that motion.
I just think in her motion, she referenced 1530-010, but did you reference a fix in 020? Is that included then?
On the permit fee, she referenced the two different sections.
The two different
okay.
subsections.
But that's outside of this. Right?
Oh, you are right. Because I think it does say 1530-020.
The first section is 1508-020. And the last one is under is 1530-020.
Right.
You just need to amend your.
So we'll just amend it on the motion on the agenda, because on the agenda, it's listed as 1530-010. So it needs to go to 1530-020.
Correct.
Oh, I
That's my
see.
amendment.
You need to extend to that
Yep.
next section.
Correct,
Okay, and is that, so you're amending your motion to,
correct.
and then does that go for the second as well? I think, were you the second, Danny?
Oh, I
Yes.
thought she was playing. I guess I second it.
Okay.
And I approve the amendment.
Okay, very good. So we have a motion by Lena, a second by Denny with that change. Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, we'll do roll call. We'll start with Lena.
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
I'm also an aye. And Denny?
Aye.
That carries unanimously. Thank you, staff. Good work. All right, we'll move on to item number 5, our reports, our mayor and council reports, and we'll start with Denny.
Again, we are moving forward with the solid waste district. They're planning some major changes over there, and we're reviewing some bid amounts and so forth, but it will be requiring an additional increase in our fees, not significant, but not minimal either. And so once we get that established, I'll bring it back to the council. And nothing other than that.
Okay, very good. For my report, I attended a UIA meeting, the Utopia meeting that's online, and all I did was approve the bonding parameters for one of the cities up north. I can't remember which one, but basically nothing too exciting there. And then the other just kind of side thing I've been doing is I reached out to the county assessor and asked for numbers on kind of our housing mix in Santa Clara and how that compares to other cities. And so they've sent numbers over and we're just trying to kind of verify those right now internally to see if they kind of match up what we're thinking. But I think it'll just help council to know how we compare and if we are at some sort of a tipping point that I referred to earlier of too many, or I don't know. It'll be interesting to kind of see how it all fleshes out, but we'll hopefully have those numbers to report in a work meeting or something sometime soon. And that's all I have. Krista,
I don't have anything to report.
hey, Elena,
Mine is brief. We held our youth council meeting yesterday. Brock was gracious enough to come and talk about municipal government, and he did a really good job. We did have two of our youth council members who questioned the stop sign that you put in, and one admitted that they had ran right through it, didn't even know that it was in place. So so hopefully they were told that there's signs out there, be aware of it, but it turned out great that you put that in place because it worked out really well with why we have municipal government.
I've only had one negative comment and I've had lots of phone calls about compliments about it for safety for
Awesome.
children. So I think it was a wise choice.
Awesome. Well, thank you for doing that. And thanks, Brock, for doing that. And then my second, we did have LPC last week. And I won't go into lots of details because there's not a whole lot going on, but bill files for the next year for legislature have opened. There are a number of bills that are going to be coming our way. So at a really high level, some of the things being discussed are developer infrastructure districts. So instead of public infrastructures, they're looking at developer infrastructure districts. Woohoo! And then the second one is a discussion we had on maybe possible administrative process changes to subdivision ordinances. And it's trying to abbreviate them, make them much more efficient and slimmer, where you may not even come to a city council for approval if it meets certain criteria. So stay tuned. Sounds like there might be a lot of LUDMA changes this year.
We go pretty quick, but
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
cities take 6 months, but yeah.
And that's all I have.
okay, very good. We do have a work meeting in a week, but staff, was there anything you want to bring to the council real quick? That's pressing.
I'll just throw out there, at the league meetings, and this is come next week on one of the agendas is the league recap. So it's the last time on the agenda, I think, for next week. So that'll be for council to share the things from their breakout sessions, what they got to share. But on part of the bills and things coming, I believe it was at the city manager's one there, though. The bills that have already been like filed is like a record number. So there's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of, could be happening this year. So.
Okay, very good.
I did have one item if that's.
Yeah, go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you, Councilmember Waite. On October 13th, this is regarding our City Alliance, Tech. On October 13th, I sent out an email regarding the City Alliance after we had our meeting with them and lunch. We've identified a total of 9 projects. And I've heard from half of you, but others I haven't heard from. I'm here tonight if you'd like to come over and talk to me and volunteer for a certain committee if you haven't had a chance to do so. Others of you have volunteered for multiple committees, so I thank you for that. But I just wanted to get that out so we can create a list and we know everybody who's involved in that certain task or committee. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, excellent. All right. We do not need executive session, correct?
No.
Okay, then I'll just look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilwoman Mathis, second by Councilwoman Hinton. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That carries. Thank you, everyone.